Welcome to Past Attractions. My name is Nam. I'm going to be your director, and with me today is Jeremy.
Say my name 3 times. I'm just kidding.
My movie of choice is going to be the 1988 Beetlejuice. It's an American fantasy comedy directed by Tim Burton himself. The movie revolves around the Maitland family, which is made up of Adam and Barbara, who find themselves haunting their former home that was when a new family, the Deets, move in. The Maitlands try to scare them off, but they fail. But don't you worry, there's more. Desperate for help, they turn to a mischievous and eccentric bio-exorcist ghost named Beetlejuice. Beetlegeist. That's how I thought it was spelled. Beetlegeist.
That's the reason why they put on the cover. This is the way it's supposed to be said.
Beetlegeist, who offers to get rid of the Deets. However, the Beetlejuice's methods was far more chaotic and sinister than the Maitlands really anticipated. This film is known for its dark humor, its imaginative visuals, and quirky characters, and has become a cult classic since its release, which is interesting, Jeremy, since this movie, directed by Tim Burton, which only had one movie and a bunch of shorts before this movie, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I thought it was interesting that they took a chance on this guy to do this particular style of movie, because obviously you and I, we all know Tim Burton for basically his iconic goth style. I felt like this was the beginning of that style. Do you feel that this is Tim Burton's top 3 movies?
I put in his top 3 because I think you can definitely tell that he was influenced by the old horror movies of Dracula, Frankenstein, the Monster from the Black Lagoon and all that stuff, because one of his shorts that actually became a full length, I think later on in the Disney library of movies, Frankenweenie. And I think you see Frankenweenie influence of that style go into Beetlejuice itself. Through his whole filmography of all his films, I think is probably up there because I think it's one of the most original ones that he has done, because I think later on, I want to say late past the 90s, he really started just doing a lot of other stuff like, Big Fish, Sweeney Todd, Sleepy Hollow. These are other stories that already became something. So when it comes to original, I would put that up there as his top 3. And then you mentioned of his theme. I always think Tim Burton always liked flirting with the underworld of death itself.
Yeah.
This is Beetlejuice, Nightmare Before Christmas, even though it's Halloween, is still has death things in it, Corpse Bride, with this imagination of this afterlife or this underworld.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure. How much of it do you still remember from today? Do you remember watching it?
I can remember very familiar highlights of it. It's a traveling movie. It's a road trip in his own way. As Pee Wee Herman is going from just 1, 2, 3, and if I'm correctly, he's just looking for certain something I forgot, and it just led him on this journey. And of course, the infamous Lawrence Fishburne role that he plays in the movie that everybody knows him. I'm sad because I don't remember his name in it, but I think it's Cowboy Pete. I think it was.
I was gonna say you would remember better than I would on this one.
Yeah, but I think it was, because if you remember the old cartoon, at the end of not cartoon, the TV show, every time he ends the show, he would get on the bike and he would leave the house and he would just go on this road while the credits are rolling. So this makes sense for that. And Burton not having his stuff in that movie, we didn't know that until Beetlejuice, because I feel like he's like, I'll do this, for the heck of it. Hopefully I'll get my own movie after that. So
and the thing about it is the little things I do remember about not Beetlejuice, I'm sorry, apologize. The little things I do remember about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like the darker moments, like you can definitely tell that there was a hints of the Tim Burton aspect. Granted, yes, that movie was directed by Tim Burton, but you could see that style kind of slowly come out. And I think Beetlejuice, to me, was the first movie where you really saw the iconic Tim Burton style. Tim Burton could have directed a comedy movie called Hot to Trot. Remember that movie? I don't remember that movie. No. Nobody remembers that movie. It's okay. But Wes Craven was actually the original director for this movie, for Beetlejuice. So we'll go into it a little bit more, the original idea of Beetlejuice, a little bit later. But whenever Tim Burton ended up taking this role, because Wes Craven decided to turn it down and go somewhere and do something else, he decided to take it from a horror movie to a more dark, whimsical comedy that we know of right now as today. But real quick, Beetlejuice itself is a 92-minute movie. This movie came out March 30th, 1988. It was budgeted for $15 million and did $74.7 million. So box office success.
All know that cash rules everything around us. Cream, get the money, dollar bill, y'all.
So interesting enough, let's go over just like the actual actors in this cast. A handful of these guys we've already talked about. You and I have already talked about. Alec Baldwin, which if you guys had listened and followed us since the beginning, he was in The Shadow,
That was my pick.
Yeah, which is one of Jeremy's like guilty pleasure movies of the past. Feel free.
That pleasure's totally going away though. But go on. Yeah.
It was definitely an interesting movie, Jeremy. It was an interesting movie.
It was like their answer to Batman. So
yes, absolutely. Before this, he was actually known for like the soap opera The Doctors from like 1980 to 1982, but he really wasn't known for his movies during this time. Alec Baldwin to me is an interesting like actor because I know of him, you know of him, like we know of their family, right? The Baldwins and a lot of other like popular actor families, like the Wilsons, like Owen Wilson, Luke Wilson, or the Sheens, Charlie Martin and Emilio Estevez, and many more. To me, Alec Baldwin, like as iconic of a common name that you hear him in, I don't really remember him in too many roles. For you, what were like his iconic roles besides 30 Rock?
Other than The Shadow, I didn't really follow him that much because I was young, so I didn't really follow him much to know any other really movies that didn't hit theaters. I think he did probably a lot of movies that hit like, in the stores itself and whatnot. I thought he was in some movie with Meryl Streep at one point, but I don't think it's called As Good as It Gets. I don't think that's it. But either way, I don't know a lot about his filmography other than Shadow and honestly Beetlejuice. Now, if you have a list or something like that, maybe that will trigger some things. For a while, I thought he was the Phantom. And I was wrong.
The Phantom.
Because for some reason, I thought the Shadow and the Phantom's voice sound the same, so I just thought it was Alec Baldwin in both.
Just during that time, there was so many things. Because like the Phantom, I thought the guy that played the Phantom was also Darkman. Billy.
Oh, okay.
Billy Zane.
Yeah, Liam Neeson. Well, wasn't Liam Neeson the Darkman?
Liam Neeson was Darkman, but for whatever reason or another, I thought Billy Zane, like because he played Phantom, but I thought he was Darkman, and then he played the Phantom, and then I saw him on Zoolander, and I was like, oh, that's the guy, that's Darkman, and I was wrong, all kinds of wrong.
I think it's also interesting that Baldwin didn't get in the Tim Burton family, if you know what I mean, by like you would see him in other movies that Tim Burton did, and he just wasn't on there. He wasn't with that family of Michael Keaton, Johnny Depp, his ex-wife, of Tim Burton's ex-wife, and so on. So I think it's interesting that he didn't get on that bus with them.
Besides like the newest Beetlejuice, which we'll talk about later, like was there anybody in this movie that was a repeat like actor? Like, I mean, Johnny Depp was in like 80% of every like Tim Burton movie. In Beetlejuice, I don't think there was any repeat actors in any of his other movies. Like off the top of my head, I don't think there wasn't.
No, the only person I could think might have popped somewhere might be Catherine O'Hara. I want to say that's a possibility. I haven't really looked down her list. She might not have been in like the Tim Burton style movies, but maybe she popped up Gales and stuff. Maybe Big Fish, maybe I want to say. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just spitballing here. But no, you're right. I think Michael Keaton's the only one I think that continue on with Tim Burton after Beetlejuice.
Okay.
So,
I mean, Jack Ryan. Alec Baldwin played Jack Ryan in the Hunt of Red October, of course. I think that's been one of those.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that you follow because Jack Ryan was such an iconic character, especially now in what we're watching. Here's the interesting one. Which one of these two were the more established actor or actress? Gina Davis or Michael Keaton before they came into this movie, arguably speaking. Michael Keaton, of course, we know Batman, but Batman was after this movie. But Michael Keaton was in another movie that Jeremy and I talked about way back when, the 1982 movie Night Shift.
Yep, along with Johnny Dangerously, and then of course, I think was Mr. Mom before. Yes. I think Mr. Mom was before that too.
Mr. Mom, so 1983.
So he got some established. Gina Davis if she was around, you have to push my memory really hard to make me remember what she did before
That
Beetlejuice, what she was known for.
Sure, and I'll mention that. All right, so you nailed it on the dot. 1982, The Night Shift, Mr. Mom in 1983 for Michael Keaton. 1984, Johnny Dangerously. 1986, Gung Ho. And then she obviously did like guest roles on TV shows like Mr. Rogers, The Mary Tyler Moore Hour. Now Gina Davis, Tootsie, 1982. The Fly.
Okay, I remember her in Tootsie. Yep.
Yeah, The Fly,
Okay.
1986.
Okay.
Fletch, 1985. Television roles in The Family Tides, Knight Rider. I think she also did a short live action sitcom called Sarah in 1985. I think Tootsie and The Fly, definitely like two roles that were a little bit more well known in my opinion, at least in my world. I don't know about you. So I think it's a fair argument that both these two actors were pretty established or fairly established before they took on Beetlejuice. And of course, Michael Keaton, Night Shift. Gina Davis, for me, was in a league of their own, which is something that you and I have talked about as well. I think literally the only sports movie we ever talked about.
So far, yeah, I want to say.
Oh man, that's horrible. We need to change that.
You're the sports guy. You have like every sports movie ever on your streaming. So
No, I haven't chosen any.
Where's Major League?
I thought deeply and hardly. Maybe, guys, this season in past attractions, we'll get to see us talk about Major League. But besides talking to actors and actresses, let's go ahead and go over to some of the earlier memories, man. So, Jeremy, tell me about some early memories that you've had about just the Beetlejuice movie or the Beetlejuice franchise.
I never saw the movie until I was an adult. I want to say this will probably be my third time seeing this movie.
Oh, really?
The cartoon was the first thing I saw. As a kid, I never watched a lot of like movie. Cartoons was my thing. Cartoons are still my thing now. But as a kid, I watched any cartoon that threw at me. And Beetlejuice, the TV show, was a big thing on Nickelodeon. And that's where I really got to know totally almost like a reboot or totally a different alternate way of telling the story of the relationship between Beetlejuice and Lydia compared to the movie. So I got used to the cartoon where not only that we got more of the lore in that world that they go into, but the fact that they weren't afraid of each other. And the rules were different too compared to the movie when we talk about that. But like the whole like Lydia has the ability to, even being alive, can go into the other world to see Beetlejuice and all that stuff. Totally different than what the movie rules were. But let alone they did parodies of different shows and movies in that thing. Like one of my, I think my own favorite episode I can always remember was Beetlejuice did an Indiana Jones episode. Anytime they say his name, Indiana Bones, a boulder will just randomly show up and try to hit him. Anytime. So like at that I got more familiar with Beetlejuice. So actually I think watching the cartoon was a better choice in my opinion than watching the movie, because you kind of get a little bit more who Beetlejuice is, and then watching that movie you can kind of get why the way he is a little bit more than the other way around, because adults I think watch that movie are not going to watch cartoon.
No.
I don't think that's going to happen. I think kids will go watch the movie after watching the cartoon, and I think that was a better way to do that. But that was when Beetlejuice was just crazy. It was everywhere at the time too. So, I saw merchandise and everything like that. Striped pants was never popular as ever around that time, So I was more familiar with that. Then when I understand the art direction the cartoon got it from, because I think that was my main pull about movie when I watched the first time, was it was a big pull. And I didn't think that at the time that Beetlejuice later in my life was going to be a lot of influence through adults, because a lot of people say a lot of lines and a lot of the music from that movie that I didn't get until later on. And so I can't wait to tell you how I feel now watching the third time, how this comes out for me. But yeah, that's how I got really into Beetlejuice, was the cartoon.
Gotcha. I did actually watch the movie first before I watched the cartoons. I watched the movie, I remember, with my friends Tony, Johnny, and Jerry, which is a common theme, at least in my childhood, because I watched Bloodsport the first time with Tony, Johnny, and Jerry as well. And I do remember the moments that we watched Beetlejuice. I remember specific moments in this movie that like helped trigger memories. And when I went back to go watch this movie again, so it had to have been at least 20 years, I would think. So I do remember like little spots, little like moments throughout this movie. But whenever I got a chance to watch it all put together, the thing is I didn't realize how fast the movie was paced. Like it just felt like it just came and it went. I don't know if
I
I
agree with that.
necessarily felt like there was any like slow points. The fact of the matter is like there was just a lot of things about this movie that it just kept going. And like those moments, like just the moments that I remember just kind of like fell one after right after the other. And it made for an easy watch, at least for me. So let's talk about a couple of things about this movie, some of the fun facts that we had talked about before. So this movie originally, whenever it was written, it was actually a full-blown horror movie. Think like Nightmare on Elm Street. That was kind of like the sense that they were going for. The person who originally wrote this movie, he wrote a demon that was going to be Beetlejuice that was basically out to like kill and haunt the families. And like the end of the movie was a full-blown horror movie, but yet it was still had an ending that was a little bit more heartwarming. But Lydia was going to die. I do find that this Beetlejuice movie, the way it's made and the way it's set, is a cult classic. I wouldn't necessarily say that I think anyone that talks about Tim Burton necessarily will say it immediately within their top 3. I think maybe our generation, but as the people get younger, I think Wednesday, the Netflix TV show, Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands will come up first before this movie. What else was there?
I think I disagree. I think Beetlejuice would definitely come before Edward Scissorhands to me personally. I think Edward Scissorhands, yes, but Beetlejuice, I think, especially with a sequel coming out, I think now that is going to be gone.
Well, I
So
think with the sequel coming up for sure. Not that I felt like it was forgotten. I just felt that it was just one of those movies that since it started it all, it wasn't really like looked at and beloved as much. What I'm trying to say is that between the two, if it was made as an actual horror movie with a Nightmare on Elm Street kind of vibe to it, Exorcist kind of feel to it, do you feel that it would have like had more staying power, more like recognition power?
I think it would. I would say it's yes and no, because I think if Wes Craven was as big as it was, I think it could have been that situation where anything he puts up will be a hit kind of thing. But I think if you look back on it, it'll feel like a knockoff to a Freddy Krueger in a way. Beetlejuice is basically doing everything that Freddy Krueger does, minus, he's not going to people's dreams, but they're both crazy of coming up with crazy ideas to torture a victim. So we get that thing. And then the fact that I think is funny because Wes Craven worked on Nightmare Before Christmas where Johnny Depp died. So it's funny that doing Beetlejuice, that somehow Johnny Depp did not make it through this process to be a victim or anything in the Beatles. I think that would have been just an interesting coincidence that led to something in the future. Too bad that just was a not missed opportunity there. But to wrap it all up, I think it could be a big hit, but I don't think it will be memorable compared to his other stuff that he did. I think Freddy Krueger was so big at the time that everybody could not beat them. I would even argue Friday the 13th Jason wasn't high up to touch the Freddy Krueger movies, in my opinion, because Wes Craven just got crazier and crazier with each film, and who knows what his idea with Beetlejuice would be. Also, too, I would like to be interested what a design of his Wes Craven's Beetlejuice would have looked like. I don't know if exactly the same as Tim Burns was thinking of Tim Burns' version. If it's both the same, that's interesting. But I feel like that Wes Craven's Beetlejuice be a lot more, I don't know, more uglier, weirdly enough, because the Beetlejuice in Tim Burns' version is ugly too. But I think Wes Craven would be more hideous, I guess.
Bullets and Blockbusters, I need you to listen to us. I need you to make a what if Wes Craven made Beetlejuice. Love your channel. Shout out to you guys.
Yep.
I agree with you. I think Wes Craven could, but I also felt like it would fall into the wayside. Now, going into the kind of like we talked about the plot of this movie, I feel like this is a pretty original plot, a pretty original story. I don't know if there was anything that's very similar where it's a newly died family who are trying to scare off a family that's moved into their house. And there's this exorcist ghost per se that they have to hire to try to like do things to get them out, right? But it goes a little bit too far. Like it's an original, because I can't think off the top of my head another movie that's similar to this, nor is it as well known as I feel like it should be. You know what I mean? Like I feel like this movie was as easy to watch and as fun to watch. I feel like it should get more flowers.
I agree with that because I think that when you mentioned how the movie goes so quick, I think what made it go quick for me is it got quickly to the point of where the story is going. On top of that, it did a good job giving lore, extracting you lore of the story. And by the time you got to understanding what they're going through and everything, it's almost already an hour past. But you were intrigued. And so when it was time for them to really get stuff going, it felt like it was over before you know it. So I think they did that. I think that's what did a good job for it. That, and of course, House itself was just intriguing to look at. That with on top of it.
But let's talk about some casting people that they originally wanted or had either auditioned for or that Universal wanted or WB that they wanted. So when Tim Burton was signed on to do this movie, Michael Keaton, in order for Michael Keaton to actually get this role, Michael Keaton and Tim Burton met. And then Michael Keaton liked Tim Burton so much he didn't care what this character was or what the script was about. He just wanted to do it because of that. But originally, the thought was they wanted Sammy Davis Jr. to play the role of Beetlejuice.
So I want to go at this with an open mind.
Okay.
I don't want to compare of what we know now and what it could have been. So yes. I want to have an open mind of, could honestly Sammy Davis Jr. do this role, and would it be amusing for it? So I don't know a lot about Sammy Davis Jr.'s history of what his movies are. So that would probably be a no for me because the fact I don't know anything to compare him with. But I will say, could Sammy Davis Jr. play a crazy, goofy guy? It's possible, but I don't think he can. It wouldn't last long. I think it would have fall flat.
When you think of Sammy Davis Jr., you think of the Rat Pack. You think of like the cool, right. the slick, and he was the more animated one out of like the Rat Pack. But then again, he wasn't like Michael Keaton, like Beetlejuice of what we know animated. I feel the tone, how it's perceived and how it was presented would be completely different, right? I think it would take a more serious tone. I don't know if I necessarily think it would be
a serious tone. I think he would be more of a slick Beetlejuice. So like Michael Keaton is more of like, hey, I want you to let loose, let it go. Think of like Jim Carrey or something like that. Just let it go. Who cares if you look dumb? I think that Sammy Davis Jr. would be more of a slick person. He was like, hey, you want him out of your house? I got you. Let me show you what I can do. You dig? Now, I don't think he'll say you dig, but he would be more of a slick, let's get to the catch. Kind of like maybe like a George Clooney from Ocean 11. Okay, he would be an Ocean 11 style person that will, I got you. Let me, what I know here. So that's my set of it. And I don't know if that works in this tone of it. Because the movie's already crazy, so you need crazy.
So I was sitting there trying to think about like that style of current actor right now that I could compare it to, and I'm just drawing a blank. I can't really think of anyone, but I do see what you're trying to say, and I do see where you're going with. But I feel it does have that. It's not nearly as goofy, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know if it necessarily fits as goofy. And I think with him being a title character, it would take that goofiness away from like all the other things that happen through the movie. I wish I could compare it to another actor because I, like you, don't know Sammy Davis Jr. well enough to sit there and be like, oh, it's like this. The moment I hear Sammy Davis, I think of Rat Pack. Which, by the way, we talked about Sammy Davis Jr. in our original Ocean's 11 movie. We're just hitting the spots, right?
Which you have to give Tim Burton credit. I think that's the challenge. It would be interesting of Tim Burton taking somebody that people underestimate or didn't think. Yeah. Think of it as like the Heath Ledger with the Joker situation. No one thought that he can pull it off. Yeah. Because based on his history, he did a lot of rom-coms and all this kind of stuff. So him playing a crazy was definitely a 180. I think Heath Ledger is definitely going to be one of the most compares things to talk about an actor that pulled it off to fool everybody. But Sammy Davis Jr., it'd be a big challenge for Tim Burton to really show that Sammy Davis Jr. can pull this off. And it would have been funny. It would be interesting if they did like kind of like if you saw Bulls and Blockbuster, for instance, shout out to them when they did Back to the Future.
Yes.
And they had some early scenes of the other actor before Michael J. Fox. I would love to see if there were some extra scenes of Sammy Davis Jr. doing a Beetlejuice and see how that would have been awesome if that exists somewhere, but I don't think it does. So
that would be a unique run, right? So Tim Burton originally wanted Sammy Davis Jr., which is unique because I never would have called that. I never would have seen that. Now the studio actually wanted a couple of guys here. One being Dudley Moore, which I I'm not as familiar with his like history. Like I was just going through and kind of looking at it. Like I see Arthur, 1981. I never watched that. So the Muppets Go to the Movies, which I've seen, but I don't remember him more specifically. I think Bedazzled. Oh, he did the 1962 Bedazzled. Now we talked about the more updated Bedazzled movie. That one would be something that I would be willing to go back and kind of watch and try to see how that movie is, because I know it's a little bit different from what I felt was my beloved Bedazzled movie with Elizabeth Hurley. Alice in Wonderland, 1972. But the other person besides Dudley Moore that was listed was Sam Kinison, the comedian. That's, I feel, would have been interesting, because I thought Michael Keaton had enough charm in his movies, not raunchy, but kind of perverted, like a lighthearted raunchiness to him. But I feel Sam Kinison is such a harsh and like straight to your face comedian that
I'm having a good fucking time.
I feel that too would have kind of been an interesting tone change, right? Because I don't know.
More of a foul mouth.
Was that?
Be more like a foul mouth Beetlejuice style.
Yes, a more foul mouth. Like I like Michael Keaton had his moments, but he wasn't as raunchy, or he wasn't as straightforward. But Sam Kinison, to me, I feel would have definitely have lost the goofiness. I don't know. Maybe a raunchy Chris Farley? Is that?
It'd be a hard R. That's what you get. You get a hard R with him in that movie. Let's just keep it real. It's going to be a hard R.
No, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. The other one, so Delia, which is played by the mom from Home Alone, was originally supposed to be played by Angelica Houston, who had played roles that are dark and similar in like the Addams Family as Morticia. I don't know if I necessarily think the movie changes if she plays the role of Delia Dietz, the mom, the redheaded mom.
Don't know a lot of other movies where she played a character that sporadic, that energetic, that a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Very self-cautious about her stuff. You're looking at the mom, Lilia's mom, as a person that just loves art, doesn't like to be judged, likes to express herself. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I would have loved to have some reference of Angelica Houston in a role where she played a little bit crazy, like maybe I don't remember Witches, but maybe that'd be the closest, I guess, for her. She always plays somebody that's always has something up her sleeve,
like some calculator, right?
Yeah,
I agree.
And of course, like if she's going to, what the hair would be like, it'd be an interesting challenge.
I think so too. I mean, I wouldn't like she out of all the choices, I think I can imagine her play that role, right? Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed Catherine O'Hara though. I think Catherine O'Hara's mannerisms and how she can be somewhat serious, but kind of somewhat psycho, but yet like goofy. Not really goofy, but a lighter tone, I guess that would be. I mean, you see it. You definitely see it in Home Alone, right? In any of the Home Alone movies where she has that way about her. The other people that's auditioned for Lydia as well. Some interesting names. Sarah Jessica Parker from Sex and the City. Juliette Lewis auditioned for this role too. Brooke Shields. Jennifer Connelly, Molly Ringwald, Diane Lane, just to name a few. Justine Bateman, and Lori Lovelang. Now, again, let me repeat that for you, Jeremy, so you can kind of tell me what you think if any of those actresses or actors would kind of fit that role. So Diane Lane, Sarah Jessica Parker, Juliette Lewis, Brooke Shields, Jennifer Connelly, which we talked about in
Labyrinth.
Lori Loveling, Justine Bateman, and Molly Ringwald, which is like the 1980s, like every high school teen movie. Your thoughts?
A lot of those names I can't get a face to. So I think if I had to pick one based on the experience, I think Jennifer Connelly would be an interesting choice for that, because I know Pan Labyrinth, she was a little, what's the word I'm looking for? I think the word you're looking for Delia is extra.
Yeah.
She's a little extra.
There you go.
Yeah,
I like that. That's it. What the kids call today extra, right?
Yeah. I think Jennifer Connelly's character in The Labyrinth, she's a little extra. But I also think that when we saw her at the very beginning of that film, when she's in her room kind of playing pretend and everything like that, I think she can play the role of a person that can just be dark and just be among with herself and everything like that. Be a little bit more mellow. I think she could pull that off because she has done the whole, like, I can be by myself and have my own imaginations and stuff like that. She's already like, I don't really care about my little brother, so, whatever. so she could be dark in her own way. And so I think she can pull that role. The person I think it'd be hard to take seriously would be Molly Ringwald. Hard to
fair.
take her seriously if she played the role, only because of her image. If this is the first thing she did, it might be different. But she already has this typecast established character. It'd be hard, at least at that time. Maybe if you go back now and look at it, she's like, oh, she wasn't that bad. But because of the hype of her, it would be really, it would be hard. It'd be a hard sell. So.
That's fair. So Jennifer Connelly, I can completely see that. Juliette Lewis is another interesting one, I think, that could play that role. She played in that one movie, Natural Born Killers. She was the girl in Natural Born Killers.
It has been a long time, my friend. Yeah, but
Dust Till Dawn.
know that. What is it?
Dust Till Dawn. She played the daughter in Christmas Vacation. That's a tough one because there's a lot. But Juliette Lewis is somebody I do see in that role as well because she has kind of like that. She can have that kind of like gothic demeanor. The one I find interesting and hard. Yes, I agree with Molly Ringwald. I like when I see Molly Ringwald, I think of like, every other role that she played back in the 80s.
Right.
The other person, Brooke Shields, like I just think she had this like supermodel like look to her. And don't get me wrong, like the other women do too, but she was, I think that she was better casted for someone who was kind of like the most popular kid in high school or something along that lines. Like I see her as just kind of like the Taylor Swift of actresses. So I find it kind of hard to see her in that particular role. One of the things I thought about the movie that I liked a lot was the special effects, the stop motion effects. I think that was something that was completely talked about as far as this movie is concerned. I think it brings a lot of charm to this movie. It's interesting because Tim Burton chose to do the stop motion effects and like a little bit more of the practical effects of this movie of the budget because he didn't have the budget to do anything more than that. I think it was an accidental like love or an accidental move, but then again, it fit perfectly for this movie because I think movies during this time, special effects, but also the music, like a lot of like pop cultural music that you see like in movies like this didn't happen because I think the accidental aspects of this is helped out because I think that Tim Burton ended up choosing to be more practical effects with the stop motion. Definitely fits the campiness. The B-rated horror movie fits the campiness of this movie, fits the genre of this movie. But I think the music too, going away from like a pop cultural style movie or pop cultural music to more of a calypso soundtrack, I think makes the movie timeless in my opinion.
Okay.
How do you feel about the music and also the effects?
I think are you talking about just the music or special effects or both?
Both.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Let's
hear
talk about
both. I think that when Tim Burton gets free range to deal with is imagination of what the underworld looks like, I think that's where it shines the most. And then, well, it's funny, it's weird, right? I think that the way he gets his vision out is having the characters have that vision. For instance, the mom was a very abstract person in sculptures and stuff, and that's why all these special effects were great around the house from the models and everything like that. And then the fact that flirting with death, he can create this imaginary world of was it like to be dead and how you are not exercised because you didn't die peacefully, so you become ghosts and you have to haunt the place. So the special effects make sense for that. And when it came to the stop motions and stuff, they did a good job with less is best because like you didn't get a lot of the stop motion other than like the sandworm, to be honest with you. Only one time. I think sometimes in the movie, the music outshines a lot of stuff in the movie.
That's fair.
So much that sometimes it could overbear some scenes that you hear in the movie because sometimes it's a lot louder, especially Danny Elfman stuff.
Yeah.
But it didn't ruin the movie whatsoever. But you can tell that the music definitely set the vibe of having fun with this movie, especially like towards the end of the movie. I don't know who that artist is. I don't know anything, but that's why I think it's crazy that Beetlejuice is not as popular because the music itself is so iconic. I mean, hell, I still hear sometimes that and on the radios on XM in stores and stuff. Jump the line.
Yeah.
Like
Harry Bono or what I think his name is.
Yeah,
Yes.
I still hear that iconically. I can't think of any other Tim Burton film or a song as iconic from that.
No, that's a good point. I don't either.
Prince did a whole freaking Batman. You don't hear no Prince, you don't hear anything from Edward Scissorhand or anything like that. So yeah, it's crazy that Beetlejuice is not as beloved or showing out more through new generations. Yeah.
So you mentioned something about the stop motion. There was one particular thing you mentioned, the sandworms, which the sandworms was such an iconic piece of this movie, right? Not only of the movie, but the cartoon as well. Like when you think about the sandworms, and originally it wasn't the sandworms. Like whenever they left the house, they went to like whatever dimension they went. Like the original scenes, if you ever get a chance to go check out the original scenes, was that they go into this world where it's just like black, and then there's just like cogs, like big metal cogs that are just like rolling by and rolling around. I can't imagine this movie being when you walk into a different dimension that you don't go into the deserted like sandworm land, right? Because I feel like those were so iconic and they make such an awesome villain to this movie. And was saying that Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton's character, he wasn't in this movie very much at all. Like, and you said before that he doesn't even show up into this movie about 30 minutes in. Are you surprised? Are you surprised that he wasn't into the movie, or did it feel like he wasn't in the movie very often, or what?
I think that if you told a person
Uh-huh.
he was only in the movie in 15 minutes, they would say that is not true based on how they use his 15 minutes of the movie. Because his time in that movie, see, you're talking about like 15 minutes of just scenes, but through the pacing, way he popped up through the thing felt like 30 to 40 minutes of everything. So it makes sense. It's just, if you told somebody straight up, like, he's only in the movie for 15 minutes, they're going to think, no, they're going to think that he was only in a scene for 15 minutes, not equivalent to all the time of his screen time was 15 minutes. So it could be even 5 minutes. As long as they know how to pace him out, doesn't matter to me. And they use every 15 minutes rate for him.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, right? Like, because he's the title character. He was only in the classic suit like one time throughout the entire movie, or towards the very end of the movie, and that goes to show you like how well Tim Burton directed the movie and how well they edited the movie to where it just felt like he was such a big personality, and Michael Keaton did such a good job of being Beetlejuice that he honestly felt like he was in more of the movie than you would think. Like, his impact was so impactful to you that you could see him as the title character, yet he was kind of like a supporting character throughout this entire movie, because the real main characters of the movie were Adam and Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis and Lydia, right? Like, that was the kind of the story throughout the movie. He was just like that side character, kind of like Two-Face in The Dark Knight or something, where he just like was there, but like his presence was just more known. I found that really interesting, because whenever I thought about like Beetlejuice the movie, whenever I was watching it before, I was like, no, he was in a lot more of the movie, but he made such a big impact. But Michael Keaton roles, is this not is like one of his, if not the most iconic role in that he's done? Like, I feel character wise, like I remember Beetlejuice. I know he's done other movies. I just don't really remember the characters that well.
Iconic, you're probably right on those two.
Isn't it not weird though that like that's his two iconic characters, Batman and like Beetlejuice, and yet Batman's the only one that really is kind of shown up or talked about, I guess.
Well, most of his other roles are playing normal people.
Basically, right?
There's not the most iconic characters to me that people play is mostly characters that are not normal. Like, the other movie that I can think of where he really showed his stuff was Multiplicity. Is one of my favorite Michael Keaton films, where he plays a bunch of clones of himself, but they're normal people. Yeah,
I mean that's what right? Because I think it's Jeff Goldblum, right? And I think his like iconic roles that like the number one comes off the top of my head is Jurassic Park. But then there's The Fly, which is obviously, he scientist that does something different. The next Thor, Ragnarok.
I disagree. Independence Day was one of his big ones too.
Okay, that's fair. I think Jurassic Park comes first to me though.
Oh, automatically.
Yeah. Like,
but Independence Day was number 2 in my head.
Okay, then that's fair. I completely forgot about it. It's weird that when you think of Michael Keaton in his top 2 like iconic roles, like you don't hear about it as much. You hear Batman more than you ever hear Beetlejuice, truly. But
it's also just the timing. No one has done a weird dark film like that ever. There's a reason why he started the Tim Burton trend. That's why everybody says when you do a movie, it's a Tim Burrish-ish kind of film. Like, he started his own genre. When you get that's a beautiful thing. When you get your own subgenre.
That's true.
That's awesome.
That is true. All right, so let's talk about two alternate titles for the movie. If you have a different alternate title, you can come up with. So they're going to call this movie House Ghost. House Ghost.
Okay. From the people that make Ghost Dad, got it.
Yeah, would have failed in theaters. Just saying.
So that sounds like a Scooby Doo title.
Here's made this as a joke to Universal, and they were like, "We kind of like it." Scared Shitless. Jeremy, what do you think?
Too hard to say. That doesn't. It's man. Title movies are a powerful weapon, man.
I agree.
It's all about the title, man. It is proven that titles are very important. If you don't have that title right, because you and I both know, like in different regions, different titles are changed differently to pull in. And so, yeah, that one, no, I don't. Yeah, that wouldn't make.
I mean, Beetlejuice, I think absolutely is like the best title. I don't know if there was anything else that you could have really have come up with, like looking at the themes and stuff. Like, I mean, I guess you could call it like the Revenge of the Sandworms, but I don't know if that necessarily fits.
The only other name I could think of, weirdly enough, you could call it Lydia, and then you can go from there. That's honestly, the other one I can do. And then that way you can keep everything a mystery.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so, but Beetlejuice it's a lot simpler.
Yeah, it's the title character, right? So you got to go with it. Lydia does. I think Lydia would work too. One last little quick tidbit before we move on to like the awards. Beetlejuice was so beloved by everybody, and I think you and I both probably feel the same way. Like impactful in the original filming of Tim Burton, like he was killed off by the sandworm. But test audiences, they felt that it was too harsh, and they wanted it to be a little lighter, that he would come back. Hence the reason why, he's back, or he didn't die. It ended the way that it ended, where he went to the head shrinker and tried to switch him numbers.
The waiting room, just call it the waiting room.
Yeah, the waiting room.
The waiting room.
There you go.
Yeah.
The waiting room, and he switched them numbers. I don't know exactly what he was thinking. Like, it was the head shrinker was holding the number, so it's not like you could like slide that number back in. He was just like,
oh, that's why he just tossed it. He's like, here.
Dodge,
He did
man.
it too.
I would have got the hell out of Dodge. I would have like,
Yeah.
dude, I'm gone. All right. So let's go ahead and go over some awards here. And of course, it's been a long time since we've done these, like forever ago, right? First time on this new page. So we're going to hit you guys with some new ones, and I'm going to explain you guys what the award is. Some of this actually pertains to like Jeremy's love for games, because he's the in-game boss as well. My love for sports, because I'm a basketball fanatic, and also some of Jeremy's love for sports. And of course, we'll come up with more unique names as these awards go, and you might see them repeat as we go. So we're going to start off with Jeremy's first award, which is the in-game boss, Sonic the Hedgehog Rings.
Yeah.
Which is a fancy way of saying that this is the best scene award, or best sequence of scenes award, because in Sonic, you're just going from one side scroller to the end seamlessly, trying to collect rings. So Jeremy, if you had to sit there and say what was your most rewatchable, what was your favorite scene in this movie, what would it be?
Probably my favorite scene. It's weird. I think anybody that ties down here, the favorite scene is the Deo scene.
Oh,
let's be
Deo.
honest. The Deo scene, that one, it's one of the biggest highlights of the scene. One scene Beetlejuice did not do anything in, right?
Yeah.
It's weirdly enough, I like the scene where the married couple were in the underworld, and we got a tour of underworld.
Absolutely.
From the waiting room, walking through, you seeing like people that are hung or on these little clothesline reels going through. You meet a lawyer that got run over. He's flat. You got to see the skeletons typing, and it was just going through all of this, and then go in a hallway, and it's just a blue doors, and you're finding out the sixth door, all this stuff. I think that was a cool sequence because we got a tour of it. So I thought that was great because that's the only scene you got to really see the most creative, practical set of it. Other part of the movie. So I think that's personally my winner of the film. I think that one's rewatchable just because you could probably rewatch that and just see little things that you probably didn't notice the first time. So that's my personal.
I agree,
winner.
actually. That was actually my favorite sequence of this movie. Like when they first drew the door opens and they went into the underworld. I liked a lot of it. It was just that introduction. It was like the perfect introduction to this world, and just meeting everybody as they were going. One of my favorite parts, and I think it was unintentional comedy to me, was the receptionist. Because like they were just like, well, I guess we're dead. And she was just like a bitch about it. She was just like,
Yeah.
That's the way they died? That's the way they died.
died,
That's the way
yeah.
they died. It's personal. It's personal the way they died, okay?
That's what happens when you die. That is what happens when he dies. And that is what happens when they die. It's all very personal. And I'll tell you something. If I knew then what I know now, I wouldn't have had my little accident.
Intentional comedy. One that I remember between me and my friends is whenever he pushes down the tree.
Yeah.
Pushes down the tree. He's like, nice fucking model. And then
You're working with a professional here! Nice fucking model!
up there, if you know how to deliver it, that was the perfect way of doing it. All right. So actually, we're going to do the extra. Just imagine, like, I think every time Jeremy and I watch a movie, we try to imagine ourselves in the movie, what role we would play, because we love to be extras in the movie. So Jeremy, like in this movie in itself, who would you feel like you would be a part of, or what would you feel like you have done?
Oh, hands down, I would be in the underworld, like either in the waiting room or that or some other janitor or a worker in there doing something, either typing or picking up a dead body somewhere behind the secretary as she's like yelling, and I'm back there saying, yeah, tell them, definitely in the underworld where I would be, hands down. So
I have a different role for you. I think you and I would be this role. At the very beginning of the movie, whenever the Deets first move into the apartment complex, I'm not saying that just because the mover was black or is black, but I think we would play the movers. I think that interaction.
I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
That you would have Delia, where she was just like, that's art. That's my art. And you would just look at her and be like,
Yeah,
and she's like
yeah.
over there, and you just move.
And I don't mean mine and I bought it. I mean I made it. It's my sculpture. Put it on the table.
The fun role that we'd have. All right. So let's go with the next award, which is the Best Supporting Character Award, but we call it the Jeremy's and one Stefan Marbury Award for Jeremy's favorite basketball player at one point or another. So the Best Supporting Character Award. So let's just say if, like Beetlejuice, I know he's the title character. You can say that he's a supporting character, but let's just say he's a main character. Him, Lydia, and the Adam and Gina Davis's character, Catherine, I think is her name. Let's just say that they're the main characters. Who do you think was the best supporting character?
you're not including Beetlejuice or Michael Keaton's?
Let's include Beetlejuice
the main one?
as a main character.
Okay,
Even though I
okay.
think he was more of a title character, but he played big enough to be the main
It has
character.
to be Otho.
Thank you. There you go.
Yeah, Otho.
Why do you feel that way?
He chewed up every scene he was in. Like there was and when he's in the scene, no one could talk. No one could do anything. He was taking over everything. And he was the one that was the most curious one about taking advantage of anything he can get his hands on. Like the house. Let's take over this house. Oh, I found that book about learning about the dead. I got it. I mean, he's the reason why Beetlejuice, came at the end. It was the help of Otho and all that kind of stuff. So, no, I would argue he had more screen time than the dad.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's the easy one right there.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I think Otho, like, totally, like, he wasn't the title character. He wasn't a main character, but if he went off to China, he would have been the main star of that movie.
He was good. He did a great
He was
job.
definitely good. He had you believe that he left New York to come there, not even part of the family, just an interior decorator that does whatever, that he left New York to go spend time with this family who he has no relation to other than he is paid by them. Redecorate the house. And don't get me wrong, I think the redecoration actually looked kind of cool. It's just a me thing. But I think Otho definitely stole the movie as far as the supporting character. Like, he wanted that main role. Like, he deserved a main role. I don't know what he did after this movie, but he deserved at least one main role. All right, so let's go for this last award. This is if we had to give this movie an Oscar award, but I call it Sifu Confucius, the Kobe's Mamba Mentality Award for the people that were locked in, whether the people were locked in or the cast was locked in or the crew was locked in and had Mamba mentality in their brain and did the best that they could, deserved an Oscar for this. Oscar for something in this movie. If you had to give something in this movie. Now, granted, they won an Academy Award. for makeup. So let's just say we take the makeup aspect away. What would you give an Oscar to this movie?
As art direction,
Okay.
I think that says it all. I mean, the moment after the couple died, that's where everything just went nuts. And there's so much creativity. I think if Beetlejuice didn't look the way he did, and Michael Keaton giving the character to that, we wouldn't really have this successful of a movie. So yeah, I think art direction was definitely the number one thing for me personally that I think it deserves. So
I'm going to go with the effects. I think the effects definitely gets in. Part of it could be makeup, but I think the effects, as far as the stop motion effects, everything just felt like it made the movie. Or at least if it didn't make the movie, it added so much to the movie. When it came to even just like the pulling the face, the Maitland's family doing all the like things to try to scare off like the Deets, or Beetlejuice turning into a snake and doing his bits, like just the practical effects and everything that they did for that, I felt definitely made this movie so much more than it was. Because I think if it was just regular CG effects, current day CG effects, which is something we could talk about here in a little bit, I don't think that this movie is the same. I don't think it is the same at all. So I give the Mamba Mentality Award to the effects team.
Okay.
So last thing we're going to talk about here, well, let's talk about Jeremy. Just based on our conversation, I feel like we found this movie enjoyable. How enjoyable did you find this movie?
I mentioned at the very beginning what I feel like watching it for like the third time. I think this movie is fantastic because as I got older and learning more about the actors as their filmography going through and then watching back, I appreciate way more than this movie was doing. Yeah, the movie went by fast. It's hard not to be pulled in. I think like have to try really hard not to be pulled in by it. I think it was just a cool design idea. It was a nice way to show a different side of like what death looks like from a different way, or let alone how does one become a ghost and haunt. Not a lot of movies explain how you become a ghost and how you haunt. They just say you just didn't pass through, so you're just a ghost. So it's cool to show that here's the steps of going through what is death like, and how do you deal with situation of that, and how do you deal with people getting out of your house. That was a cool way to do it. No other movie showed you like a manual style of that, and I think that's what makes it stand out in his own way. I think Michael Keaton stole every scene that he did. I think my favorite scene that he ever did was when he did his introduction to who he is, and he was like, from kissing the wife to spinning his head, wearing the same wardrobe. It was a Looney Tune thing, and I think that would pull me in. It was very Looney Tune-ish that way. I definitely would put that probably like in my top 2 so far favorite Tim Burton films. I think number 1 would be Batman, so maybe Beetlejuice would be number 2 automatically, because and that's biased because Batman was the first Tim Burton movie I saw, and the funny part is I don't own this on Blu-ray, and I need to get this on Blu-ray. Never got it. It just never crossed my mind of it. I actually watched the cartoon not too long ago. It is tough to watch the cartoon now.
Oh, is it? Man, that's not what I want to hear.
Yeah, it's a little tough. Well, maybe at the beginning.
Okay.
I haven't fully watched every episode, but it's kiddie. It's very, very kiddie. If you can get through the very kiddiness, it's fine. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic film. I think more people should be noticed of it. I hope the sequel will bring back. I would hope that they do a re-release in theaters, because I would go watch it in theaters. I never saw it in the theaters. Am I watching it in theaters again?
That's fair. No, I think I would reassess my views on Tim Burton movies, and I think that I would put this at number 2, if not number 1. I think number 2 easily, though, because the Batman series alone, Batman 1 and 2, I think has to be the top of the tops as far as like it brought superhero movies to the map, in my opinion. So that world, that gothic style, but for it being such an original movie, original live action movie, I mean, I think I like this movie way more than I liked Edward Scissorhands. And I feel like I need to really go back and watch Edward Scissorhands again. But I feel the tone in Edward Scissorhands is a little bit more serious, which I'm fine with. But I do think that this movie is like from start to finish is just fun. So yeah, no, I think definitely top 2 movies. Very enjoyable. I think it needs to get its flowers, and I think with the new release of the second one, it's going to get its flowers. So
and I would say, and I'll leave it at this, I think, in my honest opinion, you don't have to agree with this, I truly believe this, is that if Beetlejuice wasn't successful, we would not get this vision going into his other movies that is Edward Scissorhands, Nightmare Before Christmas, Corpse Bride, because those movies were definitely influenced by the idea of vision that he had from Beetlejuice with the underworld and everything like that.
Yeah, that's
So
fair.
a lot of people should be looking at Beetlejuice as a very full movie, as the reason why we got the Tim Burton subgenre
That's fair.
that we get today.
On to our last and final topic, much to the viewers' happiness here. We're going to talk about the sequel to this movie, Beetlejuice. Now, after watching this first movie and ignoring the fact that there is a second movie coming up, do you feel like this should have a sequel?
Yes.
Okay, so why?
The reason why is because even though we got a tour of it, there's still a lot more unanswered questions, a lot of stuff that they left questioning.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this couple is the first example of death. You could do another story of another couple dying, and when we get to see another different story of that, maybe it doesn't have to be a house. It could be something else, or it could be someone died and there's a chance this guy can go to the underworld to go rescue her. I don't know. But that world is so interesting that we only got, honestly, 25% of it, in my opinion. Oh, we got the sand world. Is there other cities in that world? We don't know. And the cartoon helped influence that even more, of showing there's a big underworld. There's cities and all this stuff, crazy stuff. There's a French bone man in the cartoon. There's a lot of crazy stuff in this world. And the cartoon could be a good influence of that if Tim Burton wants to make that canon in some shape or form into this movie. So yes, there is more to that, of more. A person can die and we can see this journey go on again. It could be some more about Lydia. So yeah.
I agree that there's a lot more to this world to be had. Absolutely would love to see it. They did leave it because of the way the audience wanted that Beetlejuice not to be punished and not to be killed off. Left it open to where they could make a sequel. Do I feel like they should make a sequel? Not particularly. I think some things are left to just have your imagination. I thought this movie was done well enough to where like it can stand alone and stand the test of time, which I think it has, personally. However, I think why they're making a sequel, besides the love of Michael Keaton reprising his role as Batman in The Flash and reprising his role as Beetlejuice, I feel has to deal with Jenna Ortega. I feel that she is such a perfect character to continue this world, which I mean, obviously we saw in like Wednesday the TV show, and just she has that like vibe to her, that look, and just that it makes perfect sense that she's like the daughter of Lydia in this next movie. I feel because of Jenna Ortega, that particular actress, they had to do something to make another movie. I don't know if anyone could have fit that. Like, let's just say from then until now, there was another actor that I feel fits that world per se. Other than you can sit there and say it's Johnny Depp and I can't think of her name, the girl from Fight Club and whatnot.
His ex-wife. I know you're talking about.
Helen something. But even then, I don't know if they necessarily fit that world. But I mean, Tim Burton can make it work, right? Because it's Tim Burton and just that world. I think Jenna Ortega gives you a good enough reason to try to make a sequel. Now, with that being said, what are you wanting from this sequel? Kind of like we talked about The Crow and what we're expecting from the sequel for The Crow or the remaster from The Crow. What are you wanting? What are you expecting from this next movie?
Before I answer, can I counter your last comment?
Sure. No, absolutely.
I think that through the history that a Beetlejuice sequel was in the making for a very long time. It just didn't work out. I think there was even one like Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii. Don't ask me why they went with that title, but that exists somewhere.
Thank God they didn't.
So to Jenna Ortega, I would argue that if they did a granddaughter, Christina Ricci could have done it. Beat both Wednesdays, but Christina Ricci was the hot one, the big one from, Adam Family, Casper, all this stuff. She has done this. I would argue if there was a Beetlejuice in the 90s that continue it, that Christina Ricci could have done that role as a granddaughter. If Winona Ryder didn't want to do it anymore, and I'm not saying replace each other.
Yeah.
I'm just saying she could do the same thing here. She can be a mother, but just not in the film or whatever reason. Now, would it be a good idea? No. But I'm just saying, as it was an opportunity in the 90s, I don't know what happened. I don't know if Batman Returned hurt Tim Burton's record with Warner Brothers to do another Beetlejuice or whatever. But I would say that Christina Ricci would have been a great candidate.
Well, I think Christina Ricci and Winona Ryder are roughly the same age, though.
Are they now? I didn't know that.
Yeah. I would say they're not that much different. They're pretty close together.
Well, Christina Ricci still can still
Right, she has
look.
that. Yeah.
You got the look, so I guess like you could pull that off. It'll be just fine. Actor surprises me; they can look so young but older than they think. Right?
There you go.
I want to go back to that world. I want in some shape or form that we get more of what goes on in the underworld. I don't think we're going to get that. I think what it is he's going to try to bring the world maybe to the real world. I don't know. Maybe he'll merge both of them together. But I would love it if Beetlejuice took Lydia's daughter into the world. And the reason I brought that up because that's what the cartoon did.
Yeah.
It built this bond, and now Lydia can go into that world, and we get more of a tour of what goes on there. I think it's time to learn more about that world. I don't know if my idea is the best idea. I would love to just see like what is Beetlejuice's reputation in that underworld? What was he doing as an exorcist down there? That's just my personal thing. So yeah, more of learning about the underworld.
You know, that would actually be interesting, right? And I know in this aspect, at least what I'm thinking won't work because Beetlejuice plays the antagonist. So he has to be the antagonist of the movie, right? Because that's just the way it is. Where instead of, you know, like the cartoon where it's Lydia being with Beetlejuice and they have their journeys kind of like Rick and Morty.
Kind of like a buddy comedy.
Yeah, buddy comedy. It would be Jenna Ortega's character in Beetlejuice instead of Lydia. Then they just replace the two. But that's wishful thinking because I think Beetlejuice has to play kind of like the antagonist / anti-hero at some point down the line. So for me, what I would like, just like you said, I would love to see the exploration of the world that they're dealing with. I don't know if we will necessarily get that. If we don't get that, it's kind of like the Darth Vader thing to me, where I want to see what Beetlejuice can do, because we only saw a taste of everything that he can do and how maniacal or how like how unhinged. It's what the kids say nowadays, right? Mm-hmm. How unhinged his character can be. I would love to see what he can do, what havoc he can cause. Kind of like it would be like the Joker in like the Dark Knight, right? Just causing anarchy and havoc that causes a lot of mass issues. So I would, at the very least, would like to see that. If not, get to see how it is in like a made-for-Netflix TV show. I mean, hell, they made Fallout, right?
Yeah. I think it'd be really cool if, and I don't know if the movie will do it, it'd be cool if Lydia never mentioned who Beetlejuice is. Because, you know, if you mention his name 3 times, he'll just show up, right? It'd be cool if Jenna Ortega's character didn't know who Beetlejuice was, and Beetlejuice takes her on this journey to show him there's the kind of almost like training her, or something, like making her his assistant on this journey, and then she catch wind that he is not what he seems.
Yeah,
that would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
but I understand budget. With the word budget, that's a lot of special effects to go down in the underworld. If they can do it, please do it. That'd be awesome. But in the real world, that would be interesting. I don't know what he will do outside the world. You got to really sell me on it.
Yeah.
So
what do you think? Release day watch for us? Is it going to be release day watch?
I'd be a day one for this. I think this will be a fun movie for day one.
You heard that.
You got to be going into it really of like, bring me into this world again. Yeah. I want to miss this world.
Yes, I agree. I miss the world. I want to see it. I want to feel it again. I know Tim Burton's bringing the stop actions back. I'm kind of curious to see what they do with the soundtrack, because I don't know if they're going to continue doing the Calypso style or if Snoop Dogg just randomly shows up.
I do hate the music. It's we get it.
Yeah.
It's like one of those, like, we get it. We don't need you to do the famous song in a slow, metally orchestra song. Like, let's play the original Joker. And just do that and let's get it going.
There you go. But you heard it. But again, you heard it from Jeremy and I. We are down since day one-ish. And thank you guys for checking us out on our new page. Please hit that subscribe button if you enjoy what we do. Hit that like button if you enjoy our conversation. Please leave comments. Love to hear everybody's opinions on the show, on the movie. Actually, I would love to hear your opinions on the movie, because we enjoy this movie. We want to hear how much you guys enjoy, how much you hate it. Doesn't really matter. We just want to hear about it. So we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Take care.
Beetlejuice.
It's showtime.